Welcome back, Honors. Welcome back, Chappelle. Welcome back to it, and welcome back to your last flip about World War I. Right? We're going to crush through this stuff, and I've decided to go ahead and start over and basically make a flip that goes over everything that we talked about in class. Shout out D period. I know we were moving quick and some of y'all were kind of confused, so I figured that I would go ahead and just redo everything we did in class. G period, I made a pinky swear of grace to me as I would keep this underneath 10 minutes, so let's rock and roll, right? So the biggest thing that a lot of y'all are still getting confused on is how the alliances in this war work, right? So everything in this red color, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, those guys are your Central Powers, aka the Triple Alliance. Well, the former Triple Alliance, because remember, there is one little weird thing about the Triple Alliance, is that Germany and Austria-Hungary originally signed a treaty with Italy, but Italy is going to switch sides at the beginning of the war. Now, the green countries are all the Triple Entente, aka the Allies, right? So the big thing is you got England, France, and Russia. But the thing about it that you need to remember is one key little factor is that these guys, the Russians, are no longer in the war, right? As of 1918 and 1917, they have decided to drop out, right? They had a communist revolution, they had an overthrow of the government by Vladimir Lenin, and so they are no longer in this war at all. This is going to give Germany a chance to focus all of their attention on France and Great Britain and try to push the front line all the way into Paris, knock out France, and win this war, right? But the thing about it is they're never going to be able to do that, and they are never able to actually win this war, and they're never able to push that front line all the way back, mainly due to the fact that the United States is going to get involved, right? So this is the moment when the U.S. enters World War I, and this is going to occur in 1917, right? Now, we don't officially declare war until April of 1917, but we do start getting angry and start getting close to attempting to enter the war as of February of 1917. Reason why is because Germany has started it up again. Germany, you're doing too much. They're doing it all over again, and they have recommenced unrestricted submarine warfare. Now, if you don't remember what unrestricted submarine warfare is, you need to go back and you need to study, all right? Unrestricted submarine warfare, though, is the concept of a submarine, a German submarine, being used to sink any target that comes by, whether it be military or civilian. And we saw how much this angered the United States when they sunk the Lusitania, right? The Lusitania was that passenger boat, that cruise ship vessel that killed 1,200 civilians, destroyed a bunch of war supplies that the United States was sending to Great Britain, and also killed 128 American civilians, right? So Woodrow Wilson was adamantly against unrestricted submarine warfare, told Germany to stop doing it and things like that. But they're going to recommence it, but Woodrow Wilson also is going to realize that apparently another big event is going to come down the pipes that's going to encourage a lot of American soldiers to join up the war, right? And what that event is going to be known as is the Zimmerman telegram. Now, this kind of is just an important thing to understand that in reality, the U.S. government wanted to go to war in February because of the recommencing of the unrestricted submarine warfare. But also, on the same token, you got to understand that this telegram is going to be published in American newspapers, and it's going to galvanize American men to want to enter this war and go to World War I and win this war, right? What the Zimmerman telegram is, the big kind of final straw for the Americans that get us involved, is this note that came from Arthur Zimmerman. Arthur Zimmerman is a German ambassador, right? He sent a message to Mexico telling Mexico to attack the United States and reconquer the land lost in the United States if they chose to enter the war. And basically, in the nutshell, is Zimmerman and the German government is trying to hedge their bets, right? They want to figure out a way to get more time, right? It's going to take time to do what I said on that map, to storm into France, recommence all this different tactics, and push those front lines all the way back. It's going to take time, and they need to figure out a way that if they're going to do that, how do you keep the United States at bay, right? And they decide to try and tell Mexico to invade the United States. Well, the telegram was apparently intercepted by the British, and so Mexico never even saw it. Woodrow Wilson is going to be furious. He is going to post and publish this telegram in a bunch of American newspapers, and it's going to be a big thing that is going to make a lot of American men decide they want to go into this war, right? And so war would be declared on Germany by the United States, mostly due to this telegram right here, right? We intend to begin the 1st of February unrestricted submarine warfare. We did better, You better believe an excerpt from that telegram is going to be on your test, right? And this right here is a political cartoon. Hey, Pierre, quit. So sorry, he's eating toilet paper in the trash. All right, so now you little weirdo. Now, like, so the biggest thing about it though is this also is a political cartoon demonstrating the Zimmerman telegram. This right here is a German, like a German figure with horns and stuff like that, being like this, like basically saying is the devil. It's like tempting Mexico with money and bribing them into invading the United States, right? Well, the big thing that you have to understand about it is the Americans are going to get involved, declare war officially on April 7th, 1917. And by 1918, 2 million American soldiers are going to be in Europe fighting, right? 2 million American soldiers. On your study guide, it's going to say how many per day, not what I was going for. How many by 1918, not per day, by 1918. 2 million American soldiers would be in Europe fighting by 1918, right? So the revolts in Germany are also causing catastrophic infrastructure issues, right? Germany is going through a lot of stuff. They are having hunger riots. They are having mutinies by their soldiers and stuff like that. So in the long run, you can make a big argument that the people that really truly won this war for the Allies wasn't even the Americans. It was actually the German citizens. They were sick and tired of starving to death due to these blockades and stuff like that were being imposed upon them by the British, and so they decided that they had had enough of this war. So you got hunger riots happening in cities and revolts going on in Germany. And with the help of all these like American forces, the Allies are going to push the Central Powers back through France, and they're going to declare an armistice. The Central Powers called for an armistice, which is an end to fighting, and it was signed on November the 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m. And we still celebrate that holiday every single year. We just now, instead of calling it Armistice Day, we call it Veterans Day, right? So the big thing about it, though, is the good way to remember Armistice Day is on the 11th day of the 11th month of the 11th hour in 1918, World War I came to an end. And it was actually signed on a train car that was on its way to, through France, right? And apparently later on, Adolf Hitler, gets this train car and, wants to destroy it and stuff like that because it's, where World War I ended and where Germany had to surrender. So the big thing about it, though, in the long run, is the armistice is signed and Germany surrenders, right? Now, it takes a little while for the war fighting to truly end because there's a lot of people out in remote areas that are going to continue fighting and things like that. But that's not something y'all need to worry about, right? But the aftermath of this war is ridiculous. You got millions of soldiers and civilians dead. A total of 20 million, we predict. Close to 20 million, slightly over 20 million people have died due to this war, right? In horrific circumstances where new war technology has just stripped away human life in such a ridiculous fashion. And on top of everything else, you've got a pandemic out there. This pandemic, jot this down, is known as the Spanish flu, right? The pandemic known as the Spanish flu, which was discovered in Spain. It's not actually from Spain. It was just discovered in Spain for the very first time. Thank you, Caleb Boya. Now, so the biggest thing about it is the flu killed 20 million people worldwide. Now, the thing about it, though, is after the fact and after the armistice is signed, big three countries became known as the Big Three, right? The Big Three countries become U.S., France, and Britain. Why are they being called the Big Three? Due to the fact that they are the ones who basically won World War I, and they are the ones who are now making economic decisions that will benefit them and then also try to figure out how to bring a peace to this entire thing after World War I. And you can see the leaders of the Big Three in this. Some of you are like, but there's 4 people. Shut up. So now look, so the people you need to worry about are, this is David Lloyd George, who is the Prime Minister of Great Britain. This is Georges Clemenceau, not the Lorax, who is the leader of the President of France. And this is Woodrow Wilson, who's the President of the United States. Those guys represent your Big Three at this meeting. And that photo is from this meeting, the Paris Peace Conference. This was held in France, not and France or what, not and France. There's a typo on the study guide too that says, these three held it and France. It was in France. The Paris Peace Conference was held in France in 1919. And Woodrow Wilson brought a document that he thought would bring a peaceful end to this war, right? He shows up with his document, and his document is known as the 14 Points, right? Because he actually refused to sign this thing known as the Treaty of Versailles. And we'll get to the Treaty of Versailles here in a second. But Woodrow Wilson believed that if we use 14 simple rules, we will be able to avoid another worldwide war. He was like, we want to never let this happen again. And spoiler alert, it does. Now, but the biggest thing is we don't want this to ever happen again. We don't ever want to see worldwide war. We don't ever want to see civilian loss or military losses of this matter ever or magnitude ever again. So he suggests his 14 points. And his 14 points included a lot of simple things. They called for fair trade over the water, no more unrestricted submarine warfare, self-determination, a de-imperialization, and things like that. Simple little things that could have been done to actually avoid another world war. But unfortunately, the European powers are just going to kick aside this entire idea. They're going to be like, no, we do not like the 14 points. And particularly, it's going to be France and Great Britain who are not fans of the 14 points, because what they want to do is they want to blame the Central Powers for the war, right? They want to punish the Central Powers for allowing this war to happen, right? Now, looking at it, though, what the document is, or the document that ends up bringing an end to World War I, is the thing known as the Treaty of Versailles, right? Because France and Great Britain refused to ratify Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. And one of the biggest things about Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, listen to me carefully, write this down. Woodrow Wilson's 14 points also included making what was known as a League of Nations, right? Write that underneath the bullet point right there. It said to make a League of Nations, which would be a cooperative group of people that would avoid a war and actually be able to come together and talk about things before a war ever started, right? But the problem is that, again, France and Great Britain did not like this document because they were like, you're being too nice to Germany, right? So Austria and Hungary would be broken up into several new countries in the Treaty of Saint-Germain. And the Treaty of Versailles would be a very vicious document that directly blamed Germany for this war. Jot this down. Germany was even forced to sign this thing known as the War Guilt Clause of the Treaty of Versailles, right? Treaty of Versailles. Basically saying that they accepted full blame for the war. Even though in the long run, the politicians that are now in power in Germany they weren't even like there or involved in the declaration of war. Kaiser Wilhelm II, the dude that is responsible for this war, ran away to the Netherlands and is living scot-free and not even having to be punished by this stuff. But the Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany for the war, forced them to pay $2.7 trillion in modern day money in war reparations. They just got done paying this war reparations off in 2011. That is crazy. And also it takes land away from Germany, creating this thing known as the Rhineland. And then also on top of everything else, they decided to create this League of Nations that Woodrow Wilson wanted to create, which would be a co-op of over 40 countries that made to negotiate in disputes and avoid war. Biggest thing you need to understand, write this down, very important. The United States refused to sign this treaty and also refused to join the new League of Nations because they thought it was disgusting and unfair. And actually, you can see that in this political cartoon right here, because here are the European powers pointing an artillery cannon at Germany, and it says the spokesman, oh, off with the spiked hat. What do you think you fought for? It's not about militarism. And so basically, they blamed Germany for the entirety of World War I. And so what you're going to see happen in Germany is catastrophic hyperinflation and absolutely terrible growth in the bad economics. And it's going to lead directly into World War II. So another little thing you should jot down as well is the Treaty of Versailles leads directly to World War II, okay? But we'll talk about that more when we actually show up on Monday morning, and I'll talk about that when we review for our test. But y'all have a great one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one.